All right, welcome back. So in the previous video, we set up a little bit, right? We want to make a Kontakt instrument. We set up an NKI, we connected it to our resource container. We even put a script inside that we can start, linked it to the instrument. We also have a sample that we threw in there. And now basically we have all the ingredients that we need to start working. Oh, well, we installed the code extension for our text editor, yada, yada, right? So now we have everything set up and we can start actually working. And I thought for the example, why don't we just continue with what we have over here? So let's go for a second inside the instrument. And we see that, we threw a sample inside. So we have this analog fat, whatever sample in there. We have the KSP script that's linked to the instrument, but also if we scroll, so this is a default instrument, right? We just created a default NKI, and these default NKIs also have, by default, a volume envelope already in there, which has a number of controls and parameters. So that's already inside the instrument. But if we go back to so if we close this little wrench and go back to our performance view that we created, and let's talk about that in a second, there's nothing to indicate anything about that envelope, right? So we have just two sliders that are doing completely nothing. And if you open any other instruments, so let's open Alicia's keys again, you see that, user has controls, right? In this case, maybe not an ADSR envelope, but whatever controls make sense, and basically the UI and UX of the instrument is in the performance view. So this is literally what the performance view is. So in our instrument, we have a command in our script. And again, this is like, this was just kind of created by default with the code completion. If we remove this make pref view and go back to our instrument mode, poof, you see it's gone. There is no performance view. The script is still there. So our sliders and everything, it's still inside. You see it's contained in the KSP script, but it's just not shown to the user, not presented to the user. So there is no performance view basically. So very simple, we make a performance view. Our second command here in the script, it just sends an empty message to the debugger. Let's talk about that later. But for now, let's just keep this command. We set a script title. So right now it just says title, and this, we can look for it. What is actually script title? So it's here. In Kontakt, each instrument can have up to 5 script slots. It's way too advanced for what we're talking about here now, but just suffice it to say that it exists. We're working with a single slot, and as you can see, it says title over here. So we can change that to whatever we want. So whatever, it's not even a must, but let's say we call it ADSR instrument, or I don't know, ADSR thing. Yeah, instrument is a bit long. So now if I just simply save it, remember, it's linked to the resource container. That's what we did last time. So it's automatically saying, whoa, it updated. Now it says ADSR thing. Cool. So moving on, we have our two sliders here, and we said we have this envelope here. And wouldn't it be nice if actually these two sliders and more would actually be controlling this envelope, so the user can actually have control of what's inside the instrument currently, which is just this ADSR envelope. So let's go look at the envelope for a second. So what do we have here? We have a number of controls, different things. And we don't even have to expose everything to the user. So normally on a very, very simple level, right, an envelope is just the simplest and most known. It's ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, and release. We can keep the rest of the things on default if it's fine for us. So hold is not doing anything at the moment, right? And curve it's a curve for the attack. We can keep it on default or move it around. Let's just do nothing at this point. And the rest of the controls, we do want the ADSR, so we don't want an attack, hold, decay envelope. And we do obviously want the envelope to retrigger when a note is being clicked. So we don't touch anything over here. And we know we want attack, decay, sustain, release. So that means we actually need 4 sliders or knobs, or doesn't matter what at this point, but we need 4 controls. So let's go back to, and remember, we don't even need to be in the edit view at the moment, at least, because we're only manipulating KSP. We can even close this and go back, and whatever we say will be updated to our performance view. So we have those 2 sliders. And I think at this point, you can go so many ways. More advanced instruments, you can give generic names and work with macros, so it's reusable code and stuff like that. But let's be very, very, very kind of on point and simple, and just give direct variable names here. So we know we want attack, decay, sustain, and release. So let's say amp env attack. That would be 1. And we're going to go for the full range of the controls in Kontakt. Again, stuff to get into maybe later, but the full range, normal range that you, not always, but very, very often work in Kontakt is 0 to 1 million. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros. And we're going to do the same for this one. And yeah, here starts the copy pasta. So amp env decay. And then we go sustain and release, right? So we need all 3. Sustain and release. So now, if I say, well, if I save this, I go here, I have 4 sliders. And of course, they still do absolutely nothing. All I did was declare sliders. They're not attached to anything. They don't do anything. And you will also notice another thing with these sliders. So let's say I put everything on maximum now. So my hypothetical attack, decay, sustain, release, they're all the way to the right. And now I go here back to my script, and I don't know. I don't even add anything. I just add an enter. I resave. Now it reloads everything. Oops! All my sliders are back to 0. So this is definitely not what we want, right? We want the user to be able to save the instrument, reload the instrument, and have the same values that they had before. Or not even just that. What if we want to save presets, right? So every preset should load as it should. And we're not telling Kontakt to do that. Kontakt is doing exactly what we told it to do, right? We told it to just declare sliders with this range. So this is called persistency. This means that the variable kind of stays alive. It's saved with the NKI or with the snapshots. And the command is very, very simple to do that. It's simply called make persistent. There's instrument persistence and stuff like that. Let's not get into that. Very, very simple level. We want a persistent variable. So again, we have some code completion. We just choose the command. And again, will come all the copy paste. So basically, we want all of them to be persistent, right? So yeah, we have the code completion to help us. I'm actually going to do this. Prepare it, decay, sustain, release, and then I can just go dup, dup, dup. All right. So now we made everything persistent. Let's save it, and let's just give this a go at this point. So I go all the way up, and now let's get rid of this line. Now it's dirty, so we can resave. I will go yes. So now it's persistent. All my sliders will stay on the on the value that they were left at. So that second step, that's really nice. Remember, they still don't do nothing. So let's give it some spaces, maybe a little bit. We have our little script going. We're feeling good about ourselves at this point. All right. So at this point, we can start thinking what would be the next step. So we can either already connect it to the ADSR envelope, or we can think, wait a minute, but we actually need a little bit more than that. If we go inside Kontakt itself, this is using knobs, and the values are shown, right? So in our case, like, what does it even mean, right? So you move the slider, you don't know that it's, actually you don't even know that which is which. I mean, you don't know that it's the attack slider. And even if you would know that it's the attack slider, you don't know what value it's on. So it's kind of clear that we will need some labels here. And also, I'm not so sure I like these default Kontakt sliders, so we're probably going to want some pictures here. So why don't we first set up the pictures, then set up some labels, and then connect everything. Now, the reason I'm going to go this route is because if I now create labels and place them very nice under the sliders and everything, take the time to kind of put it in the right place and then just change the sliders to knobs, and then I need to move everything again. That's a little bit of wasted work, right? And so let's get into first, just changing those sliders to graphics that we like. So I'm going to go back into my folders, and I have another instrument over here. And I'm just going to go to its pictures folder, and I'm going to steal a couple knobs here. So I don't need a bipolar knob for our example. We just need a simple knob. I'm going to take these two files, knob.png and knob.txt, and I'm going to go back to our instrument idea thingamajig. And remember our little resource container and our resource folders, now it comes into play. So I'm going to go to the pictures folder and I'm going to paste this in. Now you notice I have a PNG file and a text file. So the way Kontakt works is you need to have the graphic file and you need to have a text file alongside it that contains some information that is relevant to that file. So why is it not showing my, oh, there it is. Okay. So there is my little text file, and basically it has just a very few things. Don't be intimidated. It just, here, you know, this is all the default stuff. Didn't touch. All we're telling it is, does the graphic have an alpha channel? Yes, it does. How many animations does the graphic have? We'll get into it in a second. It has 128. And is it horizontal or a vertical animation? So in our case, it's a horizontal animation. So let's look at it. As you can see, it's going this way as opposed to being vertical. And the number of animations, as we said, was 128. And you can see that it starts with the knob all the way down and goes to the knob all the way up. Creating knobs and graphical assets is a whole other topic. I might cover it in some video, but I'm actually not a graphical designer, so I can show you how it's done, but the graphic design itself is a whole other, it's a whole other skill set, right? So let's say you have the knob. Let's start from there. So you have a knob, you have your text file, you put it in the resource container, and now what you want to do is basically attach your sliders to those pictures. Now you could do it a number of ways as far as like how you design your code. All these things, right? So you can, for example, say, okay, first I'll have all my declarations, then I'll have all my persistencies, then I'll set all my pictures. Or you can say, okay, everything that has to do with the attack, I'm gonna put right near the attack. So I'll put my persistence here, I'll put my, for everyone, and then continue, put the picture, put whatever I need. Up to you. I think it's a little bit cleaner like this, because you're like, okay, I'm doing this task, then I'm doing this task, and it's a little bit easier to repeat. But again, as you wish. So now we put our pictures there again, and now we want to attach them to the sliders. So this is a place to introduce a Kontakt concept, control parameters. So every single control, so our sliders, and everything else that you will be working with, has a set of parameters that you can get and set. So on the very basic level, let's go to a slider. It has a number of things, right? A slider has a value, right? At the moment, you can say, okay, hey, what is the value of this? So imagine it like asking questions. What can you ask the slider? You can ask it, hey, what's your value, right? You can ask, what is your minimum value actually? In our case, we have it in our script, it's 0, right? We can say, wait a minute, what is your maximum value? Okay, that's 1 million. You can say, you know what? What is your picture? Do you have a picture attached to you? And in our case, we don't at the moment. And there's other stuff. And it also depends on the type of control. So in our case, we have the minimum, we have the maximum, we have the value, whatever. And now we want to set the picture. Now the code for this is it's a shorthand, set control par, which stands for set control parameter, basically. That's the command. And you basically, it takes 3 arguments. It says which control parameter, and what value do you want to set to that control parameter. And there are 2 flavors to this. I don't want to explain the exact way, the inner workings, but there is, so if you want to set something that is a numerical value, you just use set control par. If you want to set a string, which is what we will be doing, then it needs to be a string. There's also an array version, but suffice it to say, now we want to set our picture graphics, we need to use set control par str. Now, here you see it says UI ID. Now, a UI ID is maybe something to stop on right now. So we declared these 4 sliders. Each one of these sliders, as again we said, okay, they have different control parameters, they have different things. but they have an ID on the UI. How will you know? Now we want to change the picture of this one, the third one. How will you know that it's the third one? If we simply say amp envelope sustain here, this won't work, because the way Kontakt work, if you simply directly target the parameter, then it targets the control parameter value of the parameter. We don't want the value. We want to say, no, the parameter, the UI widget itself, target a sorry, a parameter of that UI widget. So we need to use another command inside here, which is get UI ID. And we don't want, let's start with the attack. So we say, look, oops, we need the thing inside. So we say, look, Mr. Set control parameter, string, we want you to get the UI ID for attack. Whatever that is, we don't need to know what that is. You need to know what that is. So don't even tell us what it is. You figure it out, right? Whatever that is, maybe it's 557, whatever. You get the UI ID. Once you have that UI ID, we want you to go there, and we want you to find control par, and this is always called this way. So notice how I'm writing control par. It's already giving me a list of control parameters that I might be wanting to target, but I know I want control par picture. So I let it code complete, and now we say, cool, now you know the UI ID of this slider here. You know that what we're trying to tell you is to change the picture. And we told you that it's going to be a string, and now we're going to put a string inside. And the string would be the name of the picture that you want to attach to the knob. So I like to keep it very, very, very simple. So unless there's a very good reason to call it a different name, I'm just going to call it knob. It keeps everything streamlined. I know my knobs, my basic knob is always called knob, and it's just that. So now, hopefully, we made no mistake. We click save. We go here. It's actually here. It's not really shown because we have this yellowish sort of background. But it's here. And we would like to now do the same for the rest of them. So attack, decay, sustain, release. So let's do that. Decay, quickly, sustain. Amazing. So now, whoa, and you see it's different spacing, everything. Yeah, the paradigm changed a little bit, right? Okay, cool. Now what I would do at this point, we know we also need labels and stuff like that. But we're going to kind of want to move this, right? It looks a little bit weird now, everything like, so first of all, this one is like way over to the left. It's kind of stuck to the beginning of the instrument, and there's a lot of space to the right, and there's a bunch of space between them. It just looks completely awkward. That's one thing we notice. And another thing is, as well, it's hard to see it in the video, but now I'm moving like the knob up and down. I expect it to move the knob, but it's actually moving when I move it to the left and to the right. And it's a little bit weird. So we know we have to do two things here. First, we know that we would like to group these together a little bit and move them around, actually. Yeah, just at the very basic level, we want to move them. And the second thing is we want to take care of this awkward mouse behavior. So before we get into labels or any of that, let's do that. Now, the very simplest way to do this is we have a command called move control. And this moves the control by pixels. And we tell it which control. In this case, this is one of the quirks of Kontakt. Sometimes you need to get the UI ID, sometimes you don't. It's a little bit weird how this works, but in this case, for this particular command, you don't need to do it. These things are in the manual as well. But for example, we can say position X, position Y. Let's just see what it does. So you see, oh, someone moved. It actually moved back in a weird way. So maybe that's not exactly what we want now that we think about it, right? Like, we want to be able to move the individual controls, but we also want to be able to move the whole thing. So before we do that, let's do another thing. let's put all of these controls in another UI widget, which is called a panel, which does nothing else but contain these widgets in one place together. So let's do that. Let's do declare. There's a faster code completion for this. So panel, UI panel, and I'm gonna call it amp and panel. Now remember when we said, okay, everything, every UI widget has a set of parameters that we can adjust by using the set control par parameter. So we're gonna do exactly that again. Let's just take one that we already have. It's just quicker, and say, well, this time it's not going to be a string. So we say normal set control par. We again want to set it for the amp envelope attack. But we're not setting the picture now. We're setting the parent panel. And then we're going to say, okay, look, Mr. Amp envelope attack. Your parent panel is actually going to be amp env panel. And remember, we need to know the UI ID. So again, get UI ID. And we're going to put the, we're going to get the ID of the parent panel that we want to use. So we just told attack now that, hey, you're inside parent panel. Nothing else happens except that fact. Let's save and see that we have no errors. Yeah, nothing changed. Cool. So it worked. We're going to do the same for, again, eternal copy paste. So decay needs to go into the parent panel. Oops. Sustain needs to go into the parent panel. And release needs to go into the parent panel as well. Simple. Cool. Now everything is in the parent panel, and I can do, I can simply now I can move two things. I can move the individual controls inside the panel, and I can move the entire panel itself. So let's try that out. So let's put the panel here, and let's move the panel 50 pixels to the right, so it's not stuck to the left of the instrument. And let's see. Boom. Awesome. That actually worked. So we have no bugs and stuff. What about 75? Yeah, what about 100? Etc., etc. So now the whole thing moved a little bit to the right. I already like that. But we still have a weird gap between our individual instruments. Now, once an instrument is in the panel, if you move stuff, it moves relative to the panel. So that helps us a little bit. So we don't need to have these absolute numbers for each one. So let's just show the example. Let's just do for a minute, prepare it. So we take decay, sustain, and release. Usual copy paste. Decay, sustain, and release. Now I happen to know that these particular knobs, if we go here, are 40 pixels wide each. I mean, it's not going to show, or sorry, 40 pixels, well, both wide and both in height and in width. They are 40 by 40. So if I want to spread them out kind of nicely but not have too much spacing, I need something like 40 something in between them. So following that logic, remember now they are in the panel, so their positions will be relative to the panel. So the first one can be on 0, and the second one, let's say 44. I'll give a 4 pixel spacing between them. 88, 132, and if I save it now, you see that they are neatly aligned next to each other. And now actually, maybe I want to move my panel even more. So we move the panels, we move the controls, we move the panel, and now we can actually think of our next step, which is to go for the labels and all that. Let's do that in the next video. I think this is already a lot for one. We already have our graphics in there, and we know our next steps. So let's actually think about that before we close. So that's what I always like to do. You know, you complete one step, and you're like, okay, this is done. What are the next things? So we know the labels are the next thing. We also know that, hey, wait a minute, like I can't actually see my knobs now on the performance view. So maybe we want to change the color here. And then we know we want to actually attach the controls. So this is maybe the last thing I will show here in this video. So what I like to do is I like to have on top of my instrument just a little a comment box that is always there. So comments in Kontakt are opened and closed by curly brackets. And I write my next tasks in here. So one next task is, as we said, change BG color of performance view. Okay, awesome. And then I need to know declare and position labels. And then I know connect ADSR controls. And I guess, well, yeah, I mean, connect labels to control values. That would be my next things. So it's kind of handy. Now I know exactly what I need to do, and I can tick them off one by one. Once I'm done, I can just delete. And of course, there will be new stuff coming in as we go. So let's do exactly that in the next video. See you there.